Hey, it's Fitz, and if you don't know who I am, here's a quick bio. I'm a veteran sports journalist who writes, does TV, radio, daily YouTube videos, and I'm a longtime podcaster. Also, I have metastatic stage 4 prostate cancer that came out of remission in January of 23. During the pandemic, my doctors advised me to stay at home, and the Life of Fitz podcast was born. My original diagnosis forecast that I would be dead by age 60. But as I start season 5 of this podcast, I am 60 and still calling the many friends, athletes, coaches, colleagues, and medical advisors who I've met throughout my life. Oh, and I'm still hitting the record button and now doing so on video. Welcome to my life and the Life of Fitz podcast. Presented by the great people at Blueville Nursery in Manhattan. Joe Klanderman's career pretty much epitomizes what young coaches go through. You got to pay your dues, and it's a lot of dues sometimes. You just have to have blind faith that you're going to find your way. And he did. He went through his very difficult times in the career of coaching to get his way to Kansas State. We see the result now. One of the top defensive coordinators in the Big 12, a guy that came with Chris Klieman to Manhattan from Fargo, North Dakota, and we didn't know much about him. Was he just one of those guys hanging on to the coattails of the coach that got the big job, the jump from FCS to not just FBS, but Power 5 FBS football? And Joe Klanderman was just a guy, right? And then a year into his time in Manhattan, he became defensive coordinator. But if you roll back through the history of him, he played his football at Mankato State in Minnesota. Now it is Minnesota State. And he tried to transition into coaching, and it was anything but easy, as you will hear. And he stuck it out. You know, if he hadn't stuck it out, who knows where he'd be right now. But it wouldn't be here sitting in the studio getting ready to talk to me for the Life of Fitz podcast. His story of his climb is quite fascinating, and I hope you enjoy it. And now let's get to our talk with Kansas State's defensive coordinator, Joe Klanderman. And now there he is, Joe Klanderman. Hello, Coach. How are you?
I'm well. It's good.
It's another beautiful humid day in Kansas. How did you handle the humidity? You were a Wisconsin guy that coached in North Dakota, and then Kansas must feel like the deep South because of the humidity.
Golf game up there in North Dakota. You get the month of July, about 3 weeks worth, and that's it. Yeah, no, it's I'm kind of softy now. I was a northern guy. Now when I go up there, I freeze my butt off. So I'm not.
It's crazy how you acclimate. Let's go back to the start though. You got your start. Where'd you play at? I just spaced it off.
I played at Minnesota State.
I wanted to say Wisconsin. I knew that wasn't right. Minnesota State.
Division II school up there in Minnesota. It was the only place that was going to allow me to play defense. Everybody else wanted me to be an offensive lineman. So I ended up going there to be a defensive end.
That was a good choice.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, how big were you? I mean, what were D2 linemen like?
I'm about 6'5", and at that time I was probably around 250.
Okay.
So I would have probably into a fat body at some point in time, but I managed to keep myself under control.
I have long been on an offensive lineman's diet without the exercise. That didn't work out too well. It didn't work out too well. So you played and ended up coaching there.
I played there. And then when I was finished, the head coach that had been there for 20 some years retired after my senior year. So
of course he did.
It was the coup de grace.
Yeah.
But so then I was all set to go be a graduate assistant at another school, and a new coach came in. He had this new energy. Got kind of stale there a little bit, and he got me all excited, asked me if I wanted a GA. So I GA'd there, and I got a million stories I could get into about that. That was a phenomenal period of time in my life. But I hung around like a cockroach. I became a full-time coach there, which is another heck of a story. And then became a coordinator there. I was there for 12 years. I wasn't going to leave. I would retire there. I was happy as heck. North Dakota State came calling, and I was gone. I didn't even have a resume. I wasn't prepared for that at all.
So who hired you
at North Dakota State? It was Coach Klieman.
Okay.
When he first got the job up there, and I didn't really know him. I knew him a little bit. I just knew him, seen him here and there, but we were buddies or anything. So I really had to interview up there. Like I interviewed at the National Coaches Convention in, I don't remember what city we're in, San Antonio, I think. And like I said, I was stable at Mankato. So I had a labrum surgery, which interestingly enough, how I got that, we're a podcast, we're telling stories.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually how I met Coach Klanderman was through the North Dakota State football camp. I went up there and I worked it. We did it for recruiting purposes because there were a lot of Division II kids up there. It's common that coaches from other schools, smaller schools, will come to these bigger schools and, see what's going on. So Coach Stannard, who is the linebacker coach with us now, was the linebacker coach there. And I was a linebacker, and there was 200 linebackers at this camp, thousands of kids. And Coach Stannard was totally unprepared. So we got there and says, what should we do? So we all had these, a bunch of good coaches there. We all had these ideas, these drills that we were going to do. And I said, well, back at that time, Tampa 2 was fashionable. Mm-hmm. So the mics had to run through the deep middle and, flip their hips. And I said, well, I'll do a Tampa 2 drill with those mics to see if we got anybody that can do that. So what I didn't reckon for was that there's 250 linebackers at this deal, and I'm going to have to throw 250 40-yard balls down the field to go. So I get through the first rotation. My arm's starting to get a little sore. I get through that second rotation, and I'm hurting bad. And around about the third rotation, I'm starting to think about how I can get out of this. And then Craig Bohl, who was the head coach at North Dakota State, came over and started watching. Well, I wasn't going to punk out when Craig Bohl was there watching. So I kept throwing. And by the end of the day, my arm was just a noodle, just hanging. And, I figured it's just, I was a young guy kind of at the time, and it'll go away. It'll be fine. Week later, still hurts. Month later, still hurts. After the season came around, I finally went in and had to check out. Sure, my labrum was just totally ripped off my shoulder. So I had to have surgery, and I had surgery right before, and I had it all set. And then Coach Klanderman called me and said, "Hey, you want to come and interview?" So I had this surgery right before I interviewed with him. So I'm on the board. I got this sling. I'm trying to draw things on the board with my hand down here by my belly button. And but if I didn't get that job, I was going to sue North Dakota State anyway for the injury. So I was going to get it one way or another.
Yeah, no doubt.
That deal, but it worked out for me. It was good.
That had to be a great experience to walk into a program that had that kind of culture in place. Yeah. And Chris not only extended that culture, but kind of built on it, and the success grew.
I think he did a great job. I think we enhanced it in that we never let the guys get stale, never let them get stagnant with where they were at. It's really easy when you have some success to just kind of let a few things slide, and we just never did. We just kept pushing the standard forward, and it was awesome. Just such a player-led place. I mean, if there was ever an issue, the players handled it. And, it'd be like, hey, coach, so-and-so was kind of acting crazy on Saturday night, but don't worry, we handled it. Like, where do you get that? I mean, that's just
that's upper Midwest though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the upper Midwest kids right there.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was a really cool place to be around just personally, It just made you, it's an alpha deal, this sport of ours. And there's a lot of posturing that goes on. And that's what was cool about that culture. There really wasn't. People were comfortable with who they were. They were comfortable with their weaknesses. They enhanced their strengths. It was just a phenomenal deal that we're trying to impart to these guys here.
So, I mean, when you're at a program like North Dakota State, you're good enough to get some players that have D1A back in the day offers, but you do a lot of development. You go out and recognize that 6'5", 250-pound lineman that you can get to 310 or whatever. That's served you well. I mean, it's the same thing here, just maybe a step up.
Yeah, it's exactly, the advantage that a place like that has in FCS is that you can split your scholarships in half.
Right.
So whereas sometimes we get caught in that deal where I think that kid's going to be a good player, but it's all or nothing on the scholarship here.
Right.
Up there, I was like, let's give him half, and let's see how he does. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't kill us, So they have some advantages up there too that they definitely enjoy. But half of the guys that ended up playing at the next level were guys that nobody else recruited. It's just crazy. Incredible how that works.
But that's not uncommon of rural areas that people just miss you. I mean, or they underestimate you because he's dominant, but look at the guys he's playing against. And,
that's right. That's right. And it's hard to get up there and all that stuff. Nobody's going up there and January and risking getting caught up there for 3 days and pounding the pavement. It's just not, and then even if you do go up there, you're going to go to Fargo or you're going to go to Bismarck. You're not going to go to Mandan or someplace that's obscure that, it's just, so yeah, there's a lot of guys running around in these parts.
Yeah. Becky and I went on vacation a few summers ago, up through South Dakota. We went all to western South Dakota. And then we went up to Teddy Roosevelt National Park.
Oh yeah. That's a nice spot. Up on Medora. I know exactly where you're at.
Beautiful. Yeah. Amazing.
Yes.
I see why Teddy spent a lot of time there. And what probably was not easy to get to back in the day, because it's still not easy to get to now. Yeah. Oh, you're driving through places like, I'm from Kansas and it's not this flat. So but then we drove across to Fargo to head down the highway to come back towards this direction, and there's a lot of space.
Some bareness up there.
Yeah.
It's cool. But I think some of that's okay. I think you don't get distracted with a lot of other crap, and you develop some real good friendships, and it's a cool place to be. It's a cool place to have our kids grow up.
Yeah, I bet. And then Chris comes to Kansas State. Did you know right away you wanted to go, or you were going? What did he do? Did he say, if I get this job, you're coming?
Yeah. We were playing, if memory serves me, we were preparing for the semifinal, and just looking around the coach is always kind of involved with stuff, and he obviously was busy that week. He didn't have much going on, and some of the defensive guys were kind of, obviously one of the defensive guys ended up being the head coach there. So he had his stuff going on at North Dakota with the, that. I looked around the room and it was me and a couple of GAs that were just kind of handling this national semifinal. And it was, but yeah, I knew that I was going to go with him, and he didn't talk about it much though. That's not his style. We didn't know that was going down until it went down. And then, I kind of knew, the coach Snyder had gone and what was about to happen, but we didn't assume anything, and we weren't told. We just Connor, myself, and a couple others, we were just doing what we did. Games to win.
Yep, exactly, and you won. You took that. Yep. Going back to that period of time, I didn't think Gene had the balls to hire his buddy.
It's risky.
It's all in. Yeah. You're all in. Your career is now riding on him, but that's how much you believed in Chris Klanderman, and he was exactly freaking right. Gene
had been there when we beat Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Gene had been there when we beat Kansas State.
Yep.
Gene had been on the other end of it. He was at the University of Iowa, and when we went to Iowa and beat them there, they were just coming off of a Rose Bowl. We went right into Iowa City and beat them. He knew that the recruiting part would be different, but the football part, I think we were up to snuff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's hard. It's a hard deal, and it's hard on coach too. You can't just go in there and take everybody with you. You have to have some kind of rationalization to bring people. Because otherwise, people are going to look around. We can bring all these FCS guys up here. So you can bring some, but you got to draw a line. You got to get some guys that have some FBS experience. So that was not easy to put a staff together when you make a move like that.
What was the first thing you learned about Coach Klanderman famously said, football's football, which is true, but it is a different level. And, week in and week out, you're going against these offenses. What was the first thing you realized as a defensive coach about the difference between levels?
I think the biggest change is recruiting, to be honest. That's probably the biggest difference. And not just how it goes down, but the geography of it. You get up there and you're comfortable. These are the areas we recruit. This is what we're doing. When we got down here, we had so many people in our ear. Hey man, you got to be in Dallas. You got to be in Houston. You got to be here, there, and everywhere. And he's hiring these guys that we don't really know, and we don't know what they know as far as recruiting. So, those first couple of years were a little bit of a disaster for us recruiting. And I say that respectfully, but the 2019 class, that wasn't really our guys. Those guys were a lot of committed to Bill Snyder and that staff, and whatever we did there in the few days that we had in December was just dumb luck, I guess, so to speak, or a miss. I remember the first recruiting call I ever made was to Khalid Duke, actually, and I asked him, I said, what do you do? I knew nothing about Khalid Duke. I just knew a name. I said, what do you do best on the field? And you know what he told me? Man coverage. He said that was his best skill set, was man coverage. It turns out that's not true, but
yeah, I don't liar.
Know. Yeah. So that was, that first year, we were kind of spinning around a little bit, and then 2020 was the COVID year, which was another disaster recruiting. I think because at this level, you're usually a year ahead. So these juniors, you know them a little bit, you've seen them, whatever. We didn't see any of those guys, and we didn't get to see them in the COVID year. So I remember in particular, there was a defensive tackle that was supposed to be 6'3", 275. And we did the whole deal where, hey, put a tape measure against the wall, go stand there, take a picture. When he got here, he was 6'1", just a hair over, and probably 245, and he had about 38% body fat, and it was just not the guy that we were sold, I think, on the Zoom call. So that class was a little bit of a strange one too, but the class of 2021 and moving forward, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
2022, we put some really good ones together here. Maybe not the names that were recognizable that day.
Foundational guys, yeah,
really, really good players, and those guys are starting to be older in our program now, so we're in a good place.
And you go back to what would be the 23 recruiting class. You got some defensive guys in that class. I remember you saying there's a bunch that could play. We don't need them to play necessarily, but we got some dudes.
Now we got to keep them happy.
Yeah,
we got to find a way to play them all.
Yep.
So that's my job, I guess, is trying to find a way to create roles for guys.
Yeah. And that should pay off, hopefully, in the upcoming season with some of those guys that have matured. Yeah. But it just strikes me, though, that you're finding that next step of athlete that honestly K-State hasn't always gotten. They'd get one here and there, maybe through the JUCO ranks when that was Coach Snyder made that a thing. But getting those guys out of high school that can come in and be physically ready just wasn't a K-State thing, but you're starting to see that, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. I think it's going to come with success, and the more sustained success we have, I think that's going to continue to get better and better. And then we just got to keep hitting like we've been hitting in the transfer portal. I feel like we've been ahead of that transfer market the whole time too. When you look back to 2021, when the roster wasn't what it is now, we took 7 transfer kids on defense that year. And I think 5 of them ended up playing professional football. Mm-hmm. And they were all great people, great leaders, phenomenal in every way, shape, or form. They really helped propel the program. But at that time, the transfer portal was a relatively new phenomenon. Everybody was looking for these guys from Florida State or Georgia or wherever. And we were taking the kid from Prairie View A&M.
Yeah.
We were taking the kid from Charlotte. We were taking the kid from North Dakota State. Those were the ones that were working out for us. And whereas the transfer from Georgia is going to, you guys don't have, Rice Krispie bars in the training table.
Yep.
The kid from North Dakota State is like, you guys got a training table? This is fantastic. The training table up there was a big jar of peanut butter with a plastic knife in the middle of it. That was, so they're just, grateful for everything, appreciative to play at this place, and just phenomenal in it. And so that was how that worked. And then the following year, when everybody started to see that and started doing that formula, we went back to the junior colleges because nobody was recruiting them anymore. And, we ended up stealing some really good kids out of junior college. And so the Usos and the guys like that, so I don't know, we've just been ahead, but now I think we're to the part where we probably don't need to supplement our roster with transfers too much. I mean, there's going to be some, but I think as that class of 2021 and these guys continue to grow, we're in a pretty stable spot right now.
Yeah, it was interesting because, here in the spring with that spring period, you guys were real specific in your needs and a backup quarterback and this piece and that piece, and you accomplished all that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll see. It remains to be seen, but I think we did exactly what we set out to do.
What is Chris Klanderman like to work for?
Not a micromanager at all.
Good.
Really even keel. You're going to get the same guy every day. He's not a yeller screamer. He's not, but at the same time, he's not standoffish. I mean, he's involved. There's a reason why there's a great core of guys have been with him for so long. There's a reason why we've had opportunities to do other things. There's a reason why, at least I can speak for myself. There's a reason why I don't, is I think he tries as best he can. I mean, he wants to be competitive, but he tries as best he can to create a work-life balance. we're going to get our stuff done, but he doesn't need us up here guarding our desks. And so, we appreciate that. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like my style. So I've got a roster of about 4 dudes.
Yeah.
Take care of your shit and get out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been fortunate that his son's been with us, and his daughter worked up in the office with us. So, he gets to spend some time with them, but, he wants to take his son out golfing, and he wants to, get out of there a little bit too. So, I just, when we get our stuff done, we're out. Now, the trouble is we got to get our stuff done first.
There's a lot of stuff now. I mean, the portal and all the transfers, and it's just the NIL. It's just so many layers have been added in the short time you guys have been here. It's crazy.
I shouldn't be this sleep deprived in June. I'll tell you that.
I know.
Yeah, it just all kind of, and it never ends. Like the cycle just keeps changing. The target keeps changing. If there was some direction or you knew what was going on, you might be able to plan a little bit, but you just keep pushing forward, man. It's what it is.
Yep, it is. And also I've always enjoyed the evolution of the game. I'm now old enough to realize, it becomes about running the ball, then defense adjusts, and then so you got to throw it now. And I've seen the ebbs and flows, but your move to the 3-man front was part of that. And you'd never coached it before, right?
Never. I didn't know anything about it. Yeah. If I had a grease board, I'd draw this up for you. But, when you look at what works, we were 4 down at North Dakota State, and we were always one of the best defenses in the country, and we believed in it. We knew it, whatever. I really think in 2019, I didn't think we were very good, but we won some games that year just because I think the players had bought into us a little bit.
Yeah.
And in 2020, we kind of uncovered some things in our program that maybe we didn't know were there because we just didn't know the kids well enough. And, so that was a tough year to get through. So there was a lot of off the field things, but on the field too, we came to realization that year that, don't quote me on this, but I think this is accurate. I think we finished somewhere in the middle of the league in defense that year, towards the bottom, 6th, something, let's say like that. And, we knew that we didn't have just a ton of talent. But when we looked at the teams below us, it was like Texas and TCU and Oklahoma. And we're like, wait a minute now, those guys got all kinds of talent.
Yeah.
And we looked at the top of the league, it was Baylor and Iowa State. I'm just talking defensively, and Okie State and schools like that. And we're saying those are more like us. And so what's the common denominator here? Well, the teams at the top of the league were all 3-down teams, and the teams at the bottom of the league were all 4-down teams. And I didn't ascribe to that, but the more we thought about it, the more we thought, what is the Big 12? The Big 12 is an RPO league more than anybody else. If you're in the Big 10, it don't matter how many people you put in the box, they're going to try to run it at you. And it's just, it's winter football, right? I mean, it's not very exciting. And there's a reason why, some of the best defenses in the country are from the Big 10 West, because all the worst offenses in the country are in the Big 10 West.
Exactly.
And then they go to bowl games and give up 40 when they play other people. But, and the SEC is not that much different. The SEC is a little bit more matchup based pass game, but it's still going to try to run the football at you. The Big 12 is RPO all day long. And people say, well, Big 12, they throw it all over the place. Well, they throw it all over because you're giving them pictures that tell them to throw it.
Right.
If you gave them different pictures, they would run it all over the place. So you can never be right as a defense. And when you're in a 4-down front, even high school kids can accurately read the RPO game out really well. And so the pictures are super simple. And I just got really tired of, in 2020, every week trying to come up with different ways to, hide this picture or do whatever. And I didn't think we were going to be able, and coach didn't think this either, that we were going to be able long-term be able to recruit good enough man players to do that. So we had to think of a different structure. And, coach and I had talked about it a little bit during 2020, maybe even a little bit before. And then, I knew coach liked what we were doing and believed in what we were doing, but, after the season, it was kind of like, coach, what do you think about this? And he's like, we're doing that, and he didn't give me.
You did a good impression of him. I can do that.
Yeah. He was on and he was adamant about it. And to be honest, we didn't have anybody to study. We didn't have any baseline of anything. We just watched, and we came up with rules. And that first spring that we did it, we had very few things, and we tweaked stuff, and probably the stuff we were doing the first few days was unrecognizable by the 10th day. And interesting enough, then 2021, our first game was against Stanford. In conventional wisdom would tell if you're a 3 down front with 3 safeties playing at 10 yards, the 32 personnel Stanford team is probably not the first one you want to see.
Yeah.
The team that's going to have a million tight ends and extra linemen and stuff out there and run it down your throat. And so what we did that year is we even into that game is we practiced our 3 down stuff, and we're pushing that package forward. But we also had this in the back of our head. We had, 5 or 6 calls of the stuff that we used to do that we'd had just in case. So we were practicing both things, which to the players are 2 totally different sets of reactions to, we're 2 different teams. And so, if it wasn't working against Stanford, we were going to make that shift. Well, we went out there, just throttled Stanford, just played lights out, and never looked back. I mean, we kind of ditched the rest of that stuff and just went all in, and it's evolved, and it evolved heading into 22. It evolved heading into 23. It's evolving right now. I mean, it's just a moving target to try to stay ahead of it.
You mentioned RPO. The Big 12 is so based on creating one-on-one matchups.
That's right.
And you got to have the better man.
That's right.
And
you
if
don't always have the better man.
Yeah, you don't. And sometimes if you're a big, Big 10 type defense, you're probably not going to win that battle. And Deuce Vaughn on the opposite end could win those battles almost every time.
That's right.
It is very much different. And sometimes, honestly, one of the problems, this, I'm talking to someone who knows more about this than me. At this level, there's such a shortage of true defensive tackles, nose tackles. And they all end up at Alabama, at Ohio State. And, there's a reason why when you turn on the draft, that defensive tackle from Texas has, been drafted.
And we got lucky initially because we had Eli Huggins.
Yep.
He's one of the best football players I've ever been around. And just, and then we brought in Tim Horn that first year from Charlotte, and he was phenomenal. And we've been really fortunate there to, we kind of hit the lottery from the nose position. Then we had a young Uso that's developing, and so it's, those guys are rare. You never know where to find them under probably in a buffet line somewhere.
No doubt. I mean, those are just massive human beings that are also freak athletes. And at K-State, you got to find that wrestler, that understands all the leverage and all that stuff. Right. And Eli his development was incredible.
He was awesome. And he, nothing spectacular about him. If you walked in the door, he just looks like a guy, he wasn't fast. He wasn't strong. He had bad shoulders. He had problems. He probably couldn't run on a side today, but if you got him in the side of those lines on that paint, you weren't mess with that guy. He was going to control the line of scrimmage. He was going to, he just took it real personal. And, you get to the sideline, and he was just the calmest guy. Awesome. But when he put that helmet on, put that mouthpiece in, he was an animal. It was pretty cool.
One of the things I like about covering this Kansas State program, and it was this way to a degree under Bill Snyder, is the kids are fantastic.
Awesome.
You go into the interview room, and you're not going to get attitude, and you're not going to get someone who can't put together a sentence. I mean, you just don't. You just kind of fall in love with all these kids. Like, oh my God, that kid's awesome.
You talk about all the stress with the job, and the recruiting's a mess, and NIL's a mess, and what makes it enjoyable is that if you're at a place that didn't have that, and there's plenty of them, it would not be that much fun to do what we do.
Who's the best safety you've coached?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't define what you mean by best. Would I take him in the NFL? Was he just the best?
No, best college. I don't care about the NFL. You're a college coach.
Boy, man, I don't know. I don't know. I'll say, we've had. I don't know. This isn't out there that much, but it probably needs to be. But like, if you think now we're going to have a string of 4 NFL free safeties in a row.
It's crazy.
When you go from AJ Parker to Russ Yeast to Josh Hayes to Marquise Siegel will be the next one. Unquestionably, he'll be drafted next year. Man, I don't know. I'm going to refrain because I know that there's people that are going to hit me on that. But I'll say guys were all good for different reasons.
Right.
AJ Parker was just a really smart football player. Him and I connected that way. He was, and that's why he's playing in the NFL now. He wasn't a fast guy. He wasn't a big guy.
Not big.
He was an okay man player. He wasn't elite. But the reason he made the Lions team right away was because he picked things up in training camp, whereas other guys didn't. I think he was just exposed to some things that people didn't know, and he knew. And what he didn't know, he was able to pick up because he was so cerebral. And so, that's how he kind of made his living there. And Russ was phenomenal. Russ was, he could do everything, and he'll play for a long time in the NFL. He could physical enough to do anything you wanted in the box. Great effort player, great man player, smart, good leader, wasn't afraid to speak up.
Made plays too.
Made plays. And that was back before we knew what was kind of going on. And he just adapted as we changed things. It was awesome. Josh, I had history with because we recruited Josh to North Dakota State.
But he was a corner, wasn't he?
He was a corner. And we brought him here as a corner too, because we weren't sure at that time still. We knew we had Julius Brents and he was a freak show and all that, but we didn't know about Echo Boydo yet. So we thought maybe we'd slide Josh in here and he'd start and Echo could back him up. And then Echo did a great job. And so we moved Josh to free safety, and same. He's just tough and he's smart and he cares and he's fast and he could play man and he could blitz. And, we hit the nail on the head with him. And then, Marquise, I think, is everything that those guys are, but he might be a little bit bigger. He's awesome. One of my favorite players, though, and a shout out to my man here that we had was Reggie Stubblefield.
Oh, just the best. Played with so much heart.
Just awesome. And I don't know, the news is out too much, but he tore his ACL last week up there. And, he wasn't an NFL guy in terms of dimensions and stuff like that. He was, I don't know, he's probably a 4.7 guy, but man, there wasn't a guy that played any faster than him out there. And just what an incredible kid to coach. I remember we had lost, if I remember 2021, I think we won our first 3 games. And then I think we lost our next 3. And the third loss was to Iowa State. And we still hadn't carved out a great role for him. We brought him in as a corner also, and we kind of moved him around. We knew he was a good player, but we just didn't know where he belonged. And him and I it was a night game, and we sat in the weight room and cried and we talked and we, shouted at each other, and it was awesome. And I just promised him, I said, I'm going to get you a role in this team, because I could tell right then that he really cared. Even though he didn't play in that much, I could tell that he cared, and I was going to find a way to get him on the field. And then he started the rest of the season and was unbelievable. And, anybody that ever watched that team play remembers that guy, how he played. So he'd be in that list too. I don't know. That's a tough one. There've been some good ones.
He always made me think of, this kid understands how to live where his feet are. This is where I'm at. This I got to take care of business right here.
That's right.
And now he's doing that in Canada.
What a great guy to check people at the time when we really needed it. He came from Prairie View A&M, and when people are complaining about they don't have this, that, or the other thing, he's like, "What are you talking about? I had to buy my own cleats at Prairie View A&M. I didn't get gloves. We didn't get tape before practice. And you're whining about getting tape. And he wasn't afraid to deliver the message either. So it was just the right guy at the right time."
Let's take a short break and hear from our sponsor, Blueville Nursery.
For competitively priced landscape design, irrigation, and lawn maintenance, turn to Blueville Nursery, a family-owned business with more than 50 years of experience. You can trust the Blueville team to design and create a landscape that will accentuate your property's aesthetics. And visit our garden store 6 days a week for the best products in the area. From ornamental trees, shrubs, and flowers, Blueville has it all. Blueville Nursery, located on West Anderson Avenue in Manhattan, Kansas.
Now, let's return to the studio. Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about your family. How old are your kids?
So I've got one that's a sophomore in college.
Okay.
I've got one that just graduated from Manhattan High. She's going to go to K-State.
Good choice. That's a good choice.
That's a good choice. Pulling some strings.
Yeah.
Get her in.
I know some people too.
I've got a sophomore to be boy, and I've got an 8th grade boy to be. So I've got 4 at home. So my wife, I salute her. She's done a great job. It's the thing about this profession is you ain't like just hanging out with your family all the time.
No,
it's not like you're going to go. I missed a lot of volleyball games. I missed a lot of baseball games. It sucks. Yeah. And I think they understand. I don't know if they do, but I think they do. And I rationalize it as you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you do.
And so she ends up taking up a lot of the slack for me. She has to be boy mom, and and she her and I get after it all the time because I see I want to be the rough dad,
Mm-hmm.
and I see her kind of at the sporting events going, oh, it's okay that you struck out, and I'm kind of so, but I got to let her do her thing. She knows what she's doing.
Different styles. How did you meet Amanda?
She went to Mankato also. In Minnesota State. It used to be called Mankato State. That's what I say. It's interchangeable. Yeah.
Yeah. When did they switch? Because it confused me.
When I was there, it was 1998. It was right when I first got there. They made the switch.
Wasn't that the name of it?
More official? Yeah.
Well, wasn't Minnesota State the name of the fictitious school and coach?
Right. Well, I've heard that joke a time.
Yeah, it gets confusing to me. I'm like, hold on, that's not a real school.
Luther and Dauber and Coach.
Great show.
Fox. Yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah.
We probably were similar football wise to them. Maybe we were a little better coached, I think. But she was an undergrad there. She was a track athlete.
Yeah.
And so we kind of met, and then we're the same age, but she had taken a bunch of stuff and she got done with college in 3 years.
Shocking though.
So
the female finished before the male. Same here.
Meanwhile, I'm hanging out with my pals and she's working. So when I graduated, then she was already working up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is about an hour away from where we were. And I was going to be a graduate assistant. And so, we did our thing. We didn't have any money and we didn't have a place to stay. I slept in my car for like a month.
Crazy.
There was plenty of nights where we slept in the office together. That was just that was our Saturday night routine. And I just worked I loved my graduate assistant experience. The guy was real hard on me, and I appreciate that. He didn't even know my real name. He called me Buckethead. That was even when I think one time my
that's my nickname for my wife.
Well, I think one time my mom came down to watch a practice or something, and he came up and goes to my mom. He goes, "Yeah, Buckethead's doing a great job for us." So that was kind of my experience.
I always joke with Becky, "Hey, come on, Buckethead."
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't
even know the origin of that nickname.
Thing, I don't know, but yeah. So she lived through that, and then we got married pretty young, and when we were about to have our first, Elle, our oldest daughter, she had just she worked at a nonprofit, and they just did not renew her position at the nonprofit, and there was no funding, so she lost her job. I was about to get hired full time I was going to be promoted from a graduate assistant to full time, and then the head coach got let go months before that was going to happen, or less than a month. And so, I was out too, and so we just hustled and we made it work with nothing, and we had no insurance, we had nothing, and I think at that time I worked in a factory during the day. No, I worked in the golf course in the early morning, picking up range balls. And then I went to work at a factory. And then I went to the football office, and I just hung around hoping that the next coach would just notice who I was and give me anything. And went in there every day, didn't get paid, did whatever they asked me to do. And then at night I was a bartender. And so I was, that was my daily routine. I'd come home and I'd sleep for 4 hours, and I'd get up and go work at 5 o'clock at the factory. And that was picking up range balls. And then, it was crazy. It was a mess.
It's looking back at those experiences in life. You're like, how the hell did I do that? But then you realize, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. I kind of almost wish that my kids would go through that a little bit. Just the hard times, I applied for a job at Target and I didn't get it.
Dreaming big.
I was dreaming big. I just wanted to stock the shelves, so I didn't have to drive to this factory that was 30 minutes away. I was going to try to trade out. And I showed up for the interview at Target, and I had a master's degree at this point. I was graduated, I had a master's. I'm, 23 years old, 24. And I'm getting interviewed by this 17-year-old girl. She comes up, but she's got this clipboard and stuff. and she's giving me all these things. And she, I played the game for a minute, and then she finally asked me, I'll still remember, she goes, give me an example of a time in your life where you've demonstrated leadership. And I just said, I'm sorry. Here's what's going to happen. We don't have to do this anymore. I said, I'm going to be here every day on time. I promise you. I'll do everything you ask me to do. I'm not going to steal anything. I'll be the best employee you have ever had here. We don't need to do this right now. And, at the end of it, she goes, okay, well, we'll get back to you. Well, they got back to me, and I didn't get the job. I should have did the song and dance there at Target, but I don't know. I don't know who they hired there. I hope he was good. I hope he
probably got fired. He probably stole a lot of crap.
He probably did. I wouldn't have. If I would have been there on time, I would have done a great job. I probably would have done some extra, but I don't know. So that was kind of the low point, and then it just kind of worked out from there.
When you don't get the job at Target, that was bad. Yeah,
that was bad. I was overqualified too. I feel like
that's probably why they didn't. Yeah. They're probably looking for the 20-year stock boy, not the 2-month.
Yeah, no, I don't know, but so I hung around that football office, and eventually the defensive coordinator that they hired was like, hey, this guy does a great job. Can we find anything for him? And they gave me just a tiny stipend, and then the head of the human performance department says, hey, would you be interested in teaching bowling? I can help you there a little bit. So I taught bowling and coached football, and then he liked me, what I did in the fall. So he gave me more classes, and now I was teaching bowling and billiards, which eventually parlayed into racquetball. And
you're climbing.
I was 50% teaching and 50% coaching, but I was making away. So we got out of the gutter, and the rest is history.
And it's incredible. That's great stuff. One of my favorite stories about my dad, who he was just missed World War II. He went to Illinois to play college football, and I think in 1946, out of high school. Well, all the GIs came back.
Sure.
He's like, I can't do this. So he ended up at Evansville playing, went to Korea, served, and came back, and the GI Bill put him through Northwestern. But he had no money to live on. My dad, when I tell the story to people who knew my dad, are like, what? My dad hustled pool in Chicago, which is so out of character. But he said, I used to like bologna sandwiches. And he goes, I'll never eat another one of those. And I go, why? And he goes, that is all I ate the entire time I was in Northwest. Just go get a bunch of bologna. And
that's right.
Yep.
You got to do what you got to do. That's exactly right. That's awesome. That's good stuff. There's, see now here, like the graduate assistants in here, I don't know if they understand that way of life, because you go downstairs and they got, the performance table down there. You can grab you some pretzels, or you can grab you some Division II graduate assistant. They don't have those bells and whistles now. You fill up on water and you call it fasting.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right. It's funny though, how, wherever you are, you don't think it's enough, which is a good feeling. If you get comfortable with that, then you're not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. You I got to get going. I got to churn here a little bit.
Yeah.
What you did.
Well, yeah, I just, like I said, I just wanted to do a good job there. And we did. I think we had some really good teams. We got to the national semifinal, whatever. At the end of the day, a lot of years we were best in the country in defense, or, up there mentioned with it anyway. And, that took us to North Dakota State, which was a place where you certainly couldn't be comfortable.
No.
And, now we're doing we're fighting the same fight here. I think if you're a good coach, you care about your product, and I think that's one of the cool things about our staff is I don't think we got a lot of guys that are looking to the next thing. I think we got a lot of guys that just want to plant their feet here and make an impact on these guys and win some games.
Yep. Do you look back? You're a defensive coordinator in the damn Big 12. Do you look back and think that's a long ways I've come?
Maybe one day. I don't know. I don't look. I don't know. Maybe in between. Maybe sometime in July I'll look back. I don't know. I don't get that much time to reflect.
No doubt. There's just no time anymore with coaches. Do you want to be a head coach though?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I've struggled with that, and right now is not an easy time to be a head coach either.
No.
But I think that I'm not in a rush to do anything like that. But I do think that that's something I've always wanted to do.
That's just absolutely overwhelming. A head coach right now at this level.
you just got to have your core beliefs, and you
Yep.
got to stick to your core beliefs, and you got to let all this peripheral stuff swirl around you, and just stick to what you believe in, and how you treat people. And, that's about all you can do.
Yep. So your oldest, where'd they go to school, or are they in
I don't know
school?
if I should say that on here.
It's KU.
No, it's not. Definitely not KU. She goes to Nebraska.
Oh, that's okay.
Which I know that some of the younger people maybe aren't as upset about that. Some of the older people are not happy about Nebraska.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's an acceptable answer.
Well, the truth is this: she liked K-State. She didn't want to be so close to mom and dad.
Right.
And so she tells me, Dad, I know what I want to do. I know I want to go to school. I said, okay, let's hear what you got. She goes, okay, I got it. I've been researching it. I want to go to LSU. I said, you're not going to LSU. I've never, never even been to, no. And she says, okay. I want to go to Ole Miss. I said, no, you're not going to Ole Miss either. Strike two, what's around here that you can actually.
Yeah.
So she didn't even know that much about Nebraska. We went up, we were invited to a wedding, me and my wife in Lincoln, and we just took her up there to do a college visit because she hadn't even done one of those at any place. So she knew nothing about what she was talking about, and she liked it. So she got hooked up, and that was it.
Good. It's funny how being in Manhattan a long time, the kids want to go somewhere else for the most part. They don't want to just.
I think that's cool. I don't, I'm glad my other daughters are going to K-State. I think that's really cool too,
Yeah.
But she just wanted a little room to breathe. And I don't think we're certainly not like overbearing parents or anything like that, but I think I get it. She wants to spread her wings a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah. This town went through an Arkansas phase where kids were going to Arkansas, and then now it's Nebraska. It's pretty common.
Yeah. I don't know. As long as they're not going to that, the school out east in the state here, we're okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that school's perfect for people that aren't cut out for higher education. I'm sorry, that's a joke, KU fans. It is amazing though that she chose Nebraska and now doesn't see quality college football. It's crazy.
That is accurate.
No one has made a worse decision in realignment than Nebraska.
Yeah,
you may not want to touch this, but
it's interesting because they have the history. They've got. It's not for lack of resources or any of that. They just haven't been able to put it together.
We were talking about some of these old photos up on the wall, and when they opened up KSU Stadium, it's 68 or whatever. K-State went up there with Len Dickey and beat Nebraska. It didn't just beat them; they shut them out. And it was homecoming, so they had all these red and white balloons tied up to release on their first points. They had to release them at the end of the game. It was just so weird. I mean, the kind of the ebbs and flows of K-State football, but it was just so bad. It was when I was in school, you would literally carry your jug of, Purple Passion, which was grape Kool-Aid with Everclear. It's very healthy.
Yeah.
Very, very healthy. You needed it to get through a football game. It was so bad. The facilities were bad, and the miracle that Bill Snyder and John Weefeld as president worked. And it's once you experience big time football, you get it.
I agree.
And I think the people in Lawrence are beginning to. Lance kind of got them going now. They're like, this is kind of cool. This is. There's nothing like. Every football season is like a novel, and it's got 12 chapters or 14 chapters, how many games you play. And you've got,
It's the way we think about it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just, it's amazing how it can play out and be a great ending or a shitty ending.
And just a couple of decisions that a couple of 19-year-old guys make, can make or break you. And that's what, I hate to have a couple of decisions go a certain way and tell my family that we got to move because
yeah, no doubt.
It's not that much fun.
But you guys are secure here, and that's not common in your profession.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think if you treat people right and we do what we say we're going to do, I think results follow that. And I think that, you mentioned Kansas. I think Lance Leipold's kind of like that. I think he's very much
similar.
like Chris Kleiman. And I think he's just steadfast in what he does. Happened to fall into a couple good quarterbacks, which didn't hurt him any.
No, you got to be good at quarterback.
Yeah.
If you're bad at quarterback, you're probably not going to be great.
That's right. And so, that probably propelled him along a little bit. And, now that he's tasted a little bit, it gets a little easier every year. So
keep raising that bar.
That's right.
You know, when a team has like they go from 3 wins to 9 wins, I don't think they appreciate the climb. I see those programs drop back off because they don't realize I had to get this here and this here, and then to maintain it, and they're kind of climbing.
Sometimes it's not that 9-win year; it's the year after the 9-win year,
right?
Where you really got to be at your best. The 9-win year, you sometimes you just get hot, and if I look at our team, if I'm being real honest, we were okay in 2021. It was a fun year. It was a great year coming off of 2020. 2020 was miserable. And we beat LSU in the bowl game, and that was great. And then 2022 was the Big 12 championship year. Obviously played in the Sugar Bowl. It was phenomenal. I thought actually we probably had a better team in 2023, maybe than we even did in 2022. The record and all that stuff doesn't show that. But when you really sit back and look at it, man, we lost a couple games on the last play of the game, or last play of the game. Kid kicks a 61-yard field goal. We fumble up, overtime against Texas. We just played horrendously against Oklahoma State and still were within a score. A team that went to the Big 12 championship. So it's just like, I thought we were a good football team. It just didn't get the bounces.
Right.
So I think we're improving. It's just you just got to have that edge. And I don't say we didn't have an edge, but I'm not sure we had the same edge that we had in 22.
Right.
Now I think we got it back.
Yep. I guess I got to ask you this. I didn't want to talk this much football, but here we are. You're the defensive coordinator. You go to practice every day, and Avery Johnson's on the other side of the ball. I've tried to explain to people that this isn't hype. There's substance here. But my favorite thing about Avery is he's the most mature kid I've dealt with. I mean, he's just like steady.
He sure is. Yeah.
His dad once told my recruiting editor, Ryan Wallace, said, no matter what room Avery's in, including his house, he's the adult. He just got to handle things, and it's a unique quality, but he's a pretty special player, isn't he?
He is. He's something else. And it's going to be fun, and I think he's prepared to handle what happens.
Right.
There's going to be development with him. He people got to understand he's just a freshman. It's not like he's going to step in there and be Lynn Dickey. He's going to have some ebbs and flows that go along with this. Now, the high points of that are going to be phenomenal because
he can just do some things.
Are going to make you rub your eyes. But I think he's mature enough to handle some of the low spots. To your point, I think he's as ready to handle that stuff as anybody I've ever been around. Just because how even keel he always is. It's fun. It's fun being around him.
It's just saying it pisses me off. I was like a punk ass kid at this age, and here you are talking about life and stuff. What is going on here?
I don't know, man.
He's an old soul. He really is.
Yeah, he is, and I think he's got a really good connection, especially with the offensive skill kids. And it's a weird place because everybody knows how talented he is. And there's some of these alpha leaders on our team, the Austin Moores and the guys like that he doesn't want to step on their toes, and he doesn't. He stays in his lane, speaks up when it needs to be spoken. And, I'm just hoping he gets rolling, because if he gets rolling, there ain't gonna be any stopping him.
No, he's fun. I mean, people are like, isn't this too much hype? I'm like, it's not hype. People are seeing this in practice.
Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me, wouldn't surprise me if we went out and scored 50 a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if we struggled right away while he got his feet underneath him. I hate to say that, but whatever it is, I just know he's going to emerge on the other end of it. If he has instant success, he's going to take off. If he doesn't, he will get there. Trust me, he's good enough.
Good.
And he's smart enough to do it.
Does he make your defense better?
I think so. I think he makes us, when he takes off with the football now, throwing the football is one thing. We've been around some guys that did that really well. Skyler did that really well. Will did that really well. Where Avery's different is now he's going to test your D-line, because he's going to make sure your scramble lanes are right. He's going to make sure that you blitz, that you've got the right aiming point, and you're not, because if you miss on him now, he's gone. That dude is fast with a capital F. So I think he's from the quarterback run and from the scramble stuff. Oh man, it's fun having him on the other end of that thing.
Yep.
He would have been a nice scout team quarterback last year. It didn't work out.
Yeah, he was a little bit too good for that. He was one of those guys you couldn't really keep off the field.
That's right.
But that was never my experience in life. Coach, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast.
Thank you. I sincerely mean this. As you get older, you start to realize the little decisions you made have such a profound impact on your life. If you hadn't done this, this wouldn't follow. Almost like your personal butterfly effect. And he had an opportunity to get out of coaching. Who knows, if he landed that job at Target, maybe he'd be a regional manager now, happy as could be with his wife Amanda and kids, having no clue that he could be a high-profile Division I coordinator in the football ranks. And it's just incredible what he's done with his career. I'm 100% confident this guy will be a head coach. And it's those little breaks, getting offered by Chris Klanderman to go to North Dakota State and doing it, getting that job has now changed his life. But it all began in Mankato, Minnesota, where he stuck to it and earned his way into the coaching profession. Well, that's it for this edition of Life of Fitz. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little football intense, and we usually don't do that, but I was having a blast talking football with Coach Klanderman. We'll be back next week with another edition of Life of Fitz, so I'll talk to you real soon. I appreciate you listening to this week's edition of Life of Fitz. And thank you to all the great people at Blueville Nursery for sponsoring our show. This has been a Spirit Street production.